This is part one of installing OpenSquiggly on a Microsoft Azure virtual machine. So you want to log into your Azure portal and go to virtual machines. If this doesn't show up, you can search for virtual machines up here, pick it from the list. All right, and so now I have a list of my existing virtual machines. I want to create a new one, so I want to have a fresh virtual machine that I'm going to use to install OpenSquiggly. I'll pick from the drop-down list Azure Virtual Machine. Okay. And now I'm going to fill in the various fields, the sponsorship, the resource group, and you can create a new resource group if you need to. Let me call this OpenSquiggly VM8. I don't know. I've done this quite a few times now, but I'll call it VM8. Pick the region, infrastructure. I'm going to say no infrastructure redundancy. Consult your security team and your cloud architecture team on all these settings. I'm going to pick Ubuntu Server 20.04. That looks 20.04 is what we've tested on. Other variations of Linux will probably also work, but that's what we tested on. x86 or x64 architecture. All right, and let's see the size. We're going to pick this standard D2S V3, so that's $85 a month. What we would recommend here is we'll have some additional sizing information on the website. Don't pick anything too big. Don't pick anything overly huge. Don't pick a tiny one like one of the free ones that's just for development and testing purposes. That won't give you enough features. But unless you have a lot of users, hundreds or thousands of users, you're probably not going to need an overly gigantic one. So what we recommend is just start off with this, standard sized, and upscale it later if you find that you need more performance. Okay, the authentication type, we're going to pick SSH public. That means we're going to be able to log into the SSH using SSH, and we show how to do that in the other videos. Notice this username, Azure user. That's the default username when you SSH into the machine. That's going to come into play in the future videos. You're going to see us using this Azure user thing. The SSH public key, let's see. I'm going to show how to generate a new key pair and download. If you've already done this before, you can actually upload and reuse an existing key. But I'm assuming you haven't done that previously and that you want to generate a new key pair that's particular to this VM, that's unique to this VM. All right, and at the end of this video, we're going to see how you then download that. And in the next video, we show what to do with that downloaded key pair. Okay, public inbound ports. We want to, let's see, we're definitely going to want to allow HTTP and HTTPS traffic, and we want to allow SSH since we're going to be SSHing into the machine in order to configure it. So let's do that, and then we'll go to next. And this is where we're going to have an opportunity to configure a disk. Now the disk that the operating system goes on, that doesn't need to be particularly big, so you should just pick kind of this default here, the OS disk type. What we're going for, though, is that we want to create a new disk, create and attach a new disk, but we're going to come back to this in a rather than create and attach it now. We're going to create the VM first and then come back and attach the disk. And when you run the setup scripts, which we show in the next in the third video, we show how to format and mount this disk that we're going to attach. All right, so we're just going to skip this for now. Go to networking, and let's see, virtual network, allow selected ports, which we've already done. This will allow IP address access to your virtual machine. Okay, so now you're going to want to talk to your security team or talk to your cloud engineering team. There's lots of options for setting this up. You can set up a virtual private network, and you can do all kinds of advanced things, and you can set up firewalls and control who can access this and all that stuff. We're just creating a fairly open VM right now. Load balancer, none. And let's just go ahead and review and create now. And it tells you the pricing. You have SSH support set to the internet. Okay, again, this is something you want to be aware of for security reasons. If anybody were to get a hold of that public-private key pair that we're going to generate, they could get into your VM. There's ways to restrict that if you need to do that. That looks good. Let's go ahead and create. All right, and now we're going to download the private key in the resource. And in the second video in this series, we show what to do with that. So I'm going to go ahead and download it. I'm going to save it off into my downloads directory. It's important to remember the name of this file. Notice that it's a .pem file. And we're going to show how you use SSH and how you configure it to use this PEM file. But take note of this file name and take note that we're putting it in the downloads folder. All right. And so that's going to create the VM. That might take a few minutes or so to configure that. All right, that's done. I'm going to go to the resource. And now I want to create the disk, okay, because I didn't do that in the first part. All right, so I'm going to create the disk. I'm going to say create and attach a new disk. All right, and we're going to call this open squiggly M8 data 1, something like that. And let's make it like 30 gig. All right, now the size of this, you would want to, if you thought you were going to be attaching a lot of repositories, then so you'd want to kind of size this appropriately. We'll try to provide some sizing guidance on there. Generally recommend, kind of starting with that 30 gig, 100 gig, unless you know that you're going to be attaching, huge numbers of repositories. Start off with some medium-sized disk space. All right, and let's apply that. Okay, now since we did this as a second step, in part 3, when you format and mount the disk, it's going to show up as either SBA, SBB, or SBC. Since we did it as a 2-step instead of originally as part of the process of creating the VM, it's going to show up as SBA, I think, or SBC rather, because it's going to be the third disk. You'll see that in the follow-on videos, where you have to pick which disk it is that you're trying to create. All right, and so that looks good. Now we've done the steps. We're now ready to proceed to the second video in this series. Shows what to do with that PEM file, that SSH PEM file. And then the third part of the video shows how to SSH into the VM and then download the setup script for OpenSquiggly, run it. And then that setup script will be the thing that formats and attaches and mounts that external disk. That concludes this video. Thank you.